Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So, very briefly this morning, and hopefully I'm able to really summarize everything. The word I want us to talk about today is justice. Technically, it's the Arabic words are adl, adala, ain, dal, and lam, and qist. We have bil qist, which is qaf, sin, and ta. And I say justice because both words in the Quran are translated to justice, but they both cannot mean the same thing. They have their nuances. They are different, and Allah used them with purpose in the Quran. Wherever adlu is mentioned, it is with particular purpose, and wherever qist is mentioned, it is with particular purpose. And so let's dive in. Why are both words called justice? You see, adlu, adala, is said of, for instance, if the camel is going, like you need to park stuff on a camel. On each side, you have to put, when you put like 50 kilo of something, 50 kilo of something, and both sides are equal, this is adala. This is adl. This is justice. This is what the in classical times they would call adl. This is what they would call what is now called justice. When both sides of the camel are equal, so that there isn't much more on one side and less on the other side. And so this is adala. And so using that with respect to justice, we see it can be translated to equality, really. And so when adl is used, what is intended is equality, and this is justice. So wherever you find adl being used, that's what is meant. Now to the second word, which means which is qist. So now qist, what qist really means in classical times is said of, say you have like two containers, 50-gram container, 50-gram container, and for some reason this 50-gram container is like half full, and this is like let's say 50% full, and this is like 70% full. To reach equality, you add 50 here and you add 30 here, and so they become equal. But this is not, even though they become equal, what you did was not equality. And in present day, it will this qist will be called equity. So this is equity. Equity is when you or qist is when you swerve away from adl, from equality, in the name of equality, thereby giving each its specific due. This is qist. And so the in classical Arabic, in classical times, the Arabs understood the differences between these two words, and they used them with purpose. They used qist when they have to use qist, and they use adl when they have to use adl. Both of them, of course, their aim is justice. It's an example. A simple example would be it's two folks had to get to the top of a tree or something, or a mountain, for instance. And this guy needs shoes to be able to get there, whereas this guy needs wheelchair to be able to get there because he doesn't have his legs or something. And instead of giving both of them shoes so that they get there, if you give both of them shoes, definitely you are not taking the specific interest of one party into consideration. You are just going with this notion of adl. Whereas what is needed in that situation is qist, which is you give this a shoe and you give this a wheelchair, and they both can get there. They both can get. They are now on equal footing, so to say. And so this is qist. And if you, hopefully you guys will be reciting the Quran more and more as we go on. So whenever you come across these words, you have to insert these nuances, you see. And you find that qist is used with measurement, like when Allah talks about giving due measurements and stuff like that, which definitely, what's that intent? Of course, there are a lot of ways that depending on the financial institution or financial practices, you can insert qist to be able to get to equality, really. But an example would be if you have a container that weighs, I don't know, 30 grams, and someone needs to buy something of 50 grams. And instead of putting 50 grams into the container, you put 20 grams and you weigh it like that and you sell it. You see, that's when you have to do qist, you have to take into consideration the specific interest that is due to that person. You cannot just in the name of now you have 50, so go. No. And this is why you find that Allah uses qist with respect to measurements and stuff, because you have to take into consideration the specific situation of the party at hand. And so, of course, Arabic will give you a swerve ball. So we also find that qist is used for injustice or for something to be unjust in the Quran. So, for instance, we find in Quran 72 verse 14 and 15 that qist is translated to being unjust. We find qasitun. When the jinns were talking about the non-believing jinns, they said some of us are Muslims and some of us are qasitun. They use the word qist to describe the non-believers among the Jews. So what does this really mean? So why would the same word that means justice mean injustice or being unjust, really? And what we take into consideration is, coming from what we now understand about qist, is that these jinns are doing something which Allah does not favor, which Allah does not like, whereas they are doing it in the name of them achieving equality with maybe humans, or with respect to humans, or with respect to angels, or with respect to what have you. So in a way, they are not submitting. So they are trying to feel something. They are taking some specific interest into consideration, whereas it is not the interest that Allah would requires them to take into consideration. If you get my drift. And so this is why they are called qasitun. May Allah make us understand His words. And this is why those jinns, the non-believing jinns, are called qasitun, because in their own minds, in their pursuit of justice, they are doing things that they feel is just, or it should be just, but that is not what Allah requires of them. And so you can even say Shaitan was the first qasitun, in that in his mind is thinking all that he's doing is right, out of arrogance, out of hatred for mankind, and all of that. And so this is briefly justice in the Quran. This is justice in the Quran. Another place you can play with these two words is like Surah An-Nisa, where Allah was talking about polygamy and the likes. And you find the word qist and adlu being used specifically. But people don't take into consideration those two words when they are translating those words. And of course, to really understand those verses, you have to also understand the nuances of Nisa, the nuances of Yatama, the nuances of Azwaj, Imra'at. Like, there are a lot of words that Allah uses in the Quran to describe women or wife or spouse and the likes. But the first task one must understand deeply is those two words. Qist, which was mentioned 25 times in the Quran, and Adl, which was mentioned 28 times in the Quran. So may Allah give us deep understanding of the Quran. I hope this inspires you to recite the Quran, to be excited about the Quran, to have meaning, to make meaning of the Quran, and to understand the Quran deeply. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa sallam taslim. And me too, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.